First, let me say thank you to World Forestry Center and their efforts in creating and inspiring champions in sustainable forestry. The question we seek to answer today is, are wood waste biofuels ready for takeoff? Here at USA BioEnergy, we believe the answer is yes. Hello, my name is Nick Andrews and I'm the CEO of USA BioEnergy. USA BioEnergy's definite purpose is to be the world's leader in advanced fuels. Advanced fuels burn 80 to 90% cleaner than traditional fuels and are derived from renewable resources. Texas Renewable Fuels is one of our project level companies. USA BioEnergy was created to develop a series of advanced biorefineries that turn forest wood waste into sustainable aviation fuel. As part of our process, we capture and sequester the CO2 permanently, giving our sustainable aviation fuel one of the lowest carbon intensity scores in the industry. Our fuel will be shipped to California and qualify for the California Low Carbon Fuel Standard credits as well as D3 RINs. USA BioEnergy is a developer, not a technology company. As such, we only use proven technologies that have been commercially deployed, commercially funded, and commercially insured previously. Our process uses Fischer-Tropsch and gasification to convert woody biomass into sustainable aviation fuel. We choose wood because of its consistency, which is important because gasification loves consistency. We are working with the world's leading engineers and construction companies. These companies have specific subject matter experts in each of these technologies, and more specifically, the integration of these technologies. The construction company, with confidence, has agreed to build it on time and on budget and that it will meet performance specifications. Our advanced biorefinery design features carbon capture technology from both the process stream and the wood fire boiler, which is used for on-site green power generation. The carbon capture aspect of the plant allows us to produce extremely negative carbon intensity fuel. We have a CO2 offtake agreement with a publicly traded company who has agreed to permanently sequester the CO2 geologically over a mile below the surface of the Earth. We will securely store 50 million metric tons of CO2 over the useful life of each advanced biorefinery. This will allow our fuel purchasers to substantially offset their carbon footprint in order to reach their stated goals of carbon neutrality. On September 9th of 2021, U.S. Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Transportation, U.S. Department of Agriculture entered into a Memorandum of Understanding called the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Grand Challenge, the SAF Grand Challenge. What they've stated is they want to have 3 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel into the fuel pool by 2030 and 35 billion gallons of renewable fuel into the fuel pool by 2050. And as of August 16th, President Joe Biden signed legislation called the Inflation Reduction Act. And in that piece of legislation, there's $369 billion of money available for renewable energy. It's the single largest renewable energy package in history. Right now, there's a very large supply and demand imbalance, whereas there is only 1%, or actually less than 1%, of all fuel used globally comes from sustainable aviation fuel. In order to get this industry off the ground, we've got to work with airlines who are willing to provide a guaranteed minimum payment, that they have good credit themselves, that are willing to enter into offtake agreements long enough to give the lenders comfort, and this will go a long way of getting this industry off the ground. We plan to lead in the energy transition. We will deliver over 100 million gallons of sustainable aviation fuel to LAX annually. This, with our airline partners, we will offset 2.5 million metric tons of CO2 annually. Over a 20-year period, that's a 50 million metric ton of greenhouse gas reduction. Our plan is to develop several advanced biorefineries specifically for the production of sustainable aviation fuel. We currently have projects in Texas, Arkansas, and Mississippi. How is carbon calculated? The life cycle analysis is the method used to evaluate environmental impact of a company. Scope 1 and 2 emissions are those that are owned and controlled by the company, whereas Scope 3 emissions are the consequences of the activities of the company but occur from sources not owned or controlled by the company. An example would be the airline can claim they remove greenhouse gas emissions tied to the quality and quantity of the SAF they purchase. That would be Scope 1 and 2. Their customers then can claim greenhouse gas emissions as part of their life cycle analysis. That would be Scope 3. Tracking carbon emissions is used to determine a company's carbon intensity score. Our goal is to have the lowest carbon intensity score in the industry. We do this as part of our mission to achieve environmental, social, and corporate governance goals and to create a better and more sustainable future for all. In a joint press release with Governor Greg Abbott, we recently announced our incredible incentive package valued at over $150 million. These incentives are largely property tax abatement and job training reimbursement. Texas agreed to this because there will be $185 million in net benefit to the local taxing district over the first 20 years of operations. We have debt financing lined up with Citigroup and Stifel Nicolaus. Both banks have solid relationships with the top 25 high-yield bond buyers. Our municipal tax-exempt bonds will oversubscribe as seen in other renewable energy projects. We have also received a term sheet from Pace Equity for over $135 million that will be used on the debt side of the capital stack. And here's a picture of our property in Bonwire, Texas. You can see there the trees, they're lined up in rows. This region approaches pine trees like Iowans grow corn. And you can see our property there is 1,600 acres. It is in an opportunity zone. At this location, phase 1 will produce an estimated 34 million gallons of transportation fuel. Out of that, it'll be 25 million gallons approximately of sustainable aviation fuel. The 9 million gallons of renewable naphtha will also be created at that same facility. We have every intention of doubling the capacity at that location. We have validated the elements necessary to do that. That'll be phase 2. I'm also excited about the amount of jobs we're going to be creating in that region. We're going to create 142 direct jobs. The 142 jobs that we're creating are going to have an average annual salary of over $89,000. And so we're excited. We're excited about coming into Newton County. They could use the jobs. All of these counties really could use the jobs. And we spend a lot of money on forestry. So anyway, we're looking forward to being in Newton County and many other counties that we're looking at right now. One other thing on this slide is I'm announcing today for the first time that we have been approved for a BDOZ designation. That's a bioeconomy development in an opportunity zone. It's going to open up additional access to capital, and it also further validates that the property has achieved a AA designation for access to labor, access to utilities, access to forestry, access to all the elements necessary to develop a project that's infrastructure size. So anyway, thank you to EcoStrat and the team there that gave us the BDOZ designation. We appreciate it very much. Regarding our feedstock needs, we use just under 1 million tons, green tons, wet tons of RFS certified fiber annually in the production of transportation fuel. We also use an estimated just under 500,000 tons of boiler fuel annually that's used for the production of green power that we use to drive down our carbon intensity score. As far as the efficiency we're able to achieve, for every 1 ton of RFS certified fiber, we can convert that into 1.6 barrels of transportation fuel. So in essence, we get 67 gallons of fuel for every 1 ton of fiber we put into the system. Pretty exciting. That's where the magic happens. You'll see here on this screen that we were in Texas Forestry Association's magazine earlier this year, and we appreciate their leadership and confidence in our project, and we look forward to working with them on this location and several locations going forward. So thank you to Texas Forestry Association. Our feedstock supply is southern yellow pine trees from purpose-grown plantation forests that are actively managed. We currently only use RFS certified commercial thinnings from privately owned and actively managed southern yellow pine plantations. This allows us to earn credits which are certified by Weaver as RIN-tegrity credits. We recently commissioned an independent third-party feedstock supply study from forest to market. The study shows there's enough fiber within our supply basin to support 2 advanced biorefineries at our location in Bonweir, and we currently have 143% of our feedstock under contract. We do this to show lenders super redundancy. U.S. woody biomass supply could support over 700,000 barrels per day of fuel production, or about 350 biofuel plants at 2,000 barrels per day. If we add all that up, we could potentially create 30 million gallons per day, and based on normal operations, that would equate to just under 10 billion gallons of green fuel annually. To stay in compliance with the renewable fuel standards, we use primarily first commercial thinnings. We must prove where the feedstock came from. We have to prove that the feedstock meets the sustainability and renewable definitions as described by the EPA. So therefore we have a feedstock procurement and RIN generation protocol that we use to stay in compliance with our certifying body and the EPA. Our feedstock suppliers must prove that their land was cleared prior to December 19th of 2007 and that their property has been actively managed since December 19th of 2007 when the renewable fuel standards were originally put into place. If you're a member of the Sustainable and Forestry Initiative that since December 19th of 2007, that can qualify as showing that you were actively managed during that period of time. Also, as part of our procedures and protocol, we have to show the exact plot and boundary lines in which the forestry came from, and which is part of the certification process. We are currently actively seeking additional locations. The 2 top things on our site selection criteria are close proximity to southern yellow pine plantations that meet the renewable fuel standards, and also being in an area where we can sequester the CO2 permanently or potentially use that CO2 for the production of additional transportation fuel. On average, annually, per location, we spend just under $38 million on feedstock procurement, and you can double that when we double the capacity at each of these locations where we're able to do so. Also, the lenders are looking for long-term fiber supply agreements that they usually try to tie that to the term of the debt, so you can assume that they're going to be seeking feedstock contracts that are 15 to 20 years in length. Some suppliers aren't able to do that, so we'll sometimes bring in an aggregator to aggregate the total supply over the period of time to give the lenders comfort that they're seeking. An increased sense of urgency to slow the course of climate change must accelerate the readiness of sustainable aviation fuel for commercial use. It would take the development of 85 advanced biorefineries per year for 30 years to meet the demand for SAF. Our goal is to roll out multiple advanced biorefineries as quickly as possible. We want to win the SAF Grand Challenge. If we win, we all win. Thank you for your attention. Here's my contact information, and I look forward to answering your questions.